All right. So John in Canada says, without God, where do we get our morals?
Ooh.
What do you think, John? Where do we get our morals?
Well, the Ten Commandments are an outline for moral behavior. And if you go through them, each one, you can see that each one kind of to a certain extent, makes sense. For instance, you wouldn't want.
Hang on just a second, John. I just have a quick question for clarification. Was there like recorded human civilization before the Ten Commandments? And if so, where did they get their morals from?
Well, the Ten Commandments have always existed in some manner or another. For instance, if you check each one, you'll see that they're all similar. It's not the exact same words, but it's the exact same thing.
Yeah.
For instance, they all say, okay, no murder, no stealing, and no.
Do they all say, "Thou shalt have no other god before me"? The Yahweh, the one and only.
I'm pretty sure any god that exists would have that provision.
So that's not true though. Like that's just flat out not true. And it's not like that. It's not like a major point here, John. But do you see how, like, if something so small and mundane as this, and what you're saying here is incorrect, right? Like, I don't really think another god would say worship another god other than me, but they do. They have. They right now there are constructions of gods that exist that people worship, and the god supposedly was like, yeah, no, it's cool, man, whatever. Just hang out with all the other gods too. I don't care. It doesn't bug me, like that's awesome. Good for them. Good for that god. Whatever. But like, if we're already having difficulties with this, right? This connection, this mind-blowingly interesting point we're going to get to eventually. Like, do you really feel like the rest of this is on good footing, man? I mean, it's okay if you do, and we'll let you keep going, because I mean, I have a great answer to this. I have this answer very ready all the time. So
me too.
Yeah, like
we'll compare notes. But let's hear from John. What are your thoughts about what SR said, John?
Do you agree that we as humans, we need rules and regulations in order to operate?
Well, let me ask some questions there, because operate's a weird word. We need rules and regulations to operate. I think if I steelman your question to say human behavior throughout history has shown indications of stuff that we would consider immoral, right? Murder, rape, stealing, those sorts of things. And that rules given to people tend to guide people either through threat, coercion, or through simply argument, tend to guide people towards a more moral society. Then I would say, yes, having discussions and laws do make society a better place at this time. So I is that what you were going towards? Because I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I'm saying that we need laws. We need laws to operate. Without laws or rules, it will be chaos.
Yeah, but I think you're coming at it from more of a necessity aspect, where cross-examiner. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, brother, but it sounds like you're coming at it from an effectiveness, right?
Yeah, so, I'm basically saying that. So I'm an attorney, so I deal with laws all the time. So I'm a big pro law thing, because laws
they're helpful.
If they are actual laws and they're good laws, then they're well written, they're clear, they define terms. We have a sense in the United States, and I'm sure in Canada as well, since it descends from the common law, much like the United States, of clarity, that laws are void if they are not clear. If they're ambiguous, in the United States they are unconstitutional, right? So we have to be clear about what the law is. But if we have laws, that tends to create a better society. I would agree with that statement. Now, to SR's point, when you say we need laws or everything would just fall apart, well, that's not necessarily true, because we didn't have laws at the very beginning, and here we still are. Now, we have times where that took a really long time to develop a few laws, and then it sort of started snowballing on a curve. So I wouldn't agree with the you must have laws, but I will agree that laws do make societies a better place. Does that make sense, John? What are your thoughts?
I didn't understand what you just said. How can you possibly say that you don't need laws because laws make society a better place?
Because you're presuming that you're presuming the goal in your question, the goal of making society a better place.
Right.
If your statement is you need laws to make society a better place, without thinking about it too much, I tend to agree with you.
Exactly.
But if you just say you need laws or everything falls apart and whatever, some vague statement, I can't agree to that because I don't know what you mean. But
you're smuggling in smuggling in that goal. You're smuggling in that stance dependent, bias here. Okay. And so again, just like Cross Examiner was saying, if the way you worded this was, well, you need these rules and regulations for a community of humans to work in an effective manner that makes everything flourish. Yeah, we'd probably be largely in agreement with that. Maybe there's a little bit of, need we can argue about the definition of that. But that type of statement, yeah, sure, man. Like, we're pretty much on board with that. I think arguing, I think you'd be very hard pressed to make a good argument against that for society. Like, no, screw it. Okay, look, I'll just say this. And if it pisses people off, it pisses people off. I just think anarchy is really not good. I just think it's dumb. I think like the whole super capitalist anarchy system, totally stupid, just never going to work. Those two things bring out the absolute worst in each other. We have open phone lines, so call us if that pissed you off. But yeah, John, if what you're just saying.
Let me take a simple example for John.
Please.
Okay, so to drive the point home about necessity of laws, let's take a small tribe lives near a stream.
Exactly what I was
thinking. And they decide that, hey, when somebody is regularly building their outhouses or pooping in the water upstream, it makes people sick. So they all get together and they say, from now on, we all agree we're going to poop downstream. Everybody agree? Yeah. And everything is a little bit better. People don't get sick. Kids don't develop diseases, things like that. Right. Was that law necessary? Don't know. Would the tribe have died out without it? Maybe. Who knows? Maybe. Probably not. It was just a good idea that made their lives one iota better. Now, I'm not minimizing thou shalt not murder, but I am sort of trying to drive this point home of the law is not necessary. All right, there we are back. We had a little technical difficulty there, but we're wrapping up on John's call. I want to thank John for calling in. I have noticed as I have taken calls with him and listened to other callers, he has gotten more conversational and willing to talk to us, which I think is great. I always try to give him the chance to ask those questions. So we never really directly addressed his question, which was, if not for God or the 10 Commandments, from whence do we get morals? And I'll throw my short answer in there, which is I think generally it is a product of how we have evolved over time from a sense of a society. We have learned through trial and experiment, testing which outcomes are better. So my example I gave earlier, I'm not sure if we captured it, was a village decides, hey, if we keep pooping upstream, we get sick when we drink the water, let's poop downstream. And that becomes a law, and that becomes a rule. Now, is it a moral thing or a law? That's an interesting conversation. I think morals being the universal ought is a bit of a red herring to some degree. So I don't necessarily believe there is any objective standard to what the rules should be, but to crib off of other people who have said this, once you decide what the objective is, then you can say, okay, well, now I can evaluate any proposed action to say this action is better or worse at achieving the objective. So the analogy I've heard is the rules to chess are arbitrary. The objective of the game of chess is arbitrary. But once we know what what chess is, any individual move I can evaluate and say, that's a good move, that's a bad move. So in my universe, whether it's human flourishing or well-being or whatever, and we can have conversations about what the goal should be. But once we arbitrarily pick the goal, then we can develop a set of morals. If the goal is well-being, I don't want my kids to be sick from drinking poopy water, then it's probably a mild moral imperative that I not intentionally pollute the water.
Right.
So what are your thoughts there, SR?
Yeah, I think largely I'm in agreement. I tend to say that when we're talking about morality, what we're actually getting at is these overarching principles that guide human behavior and interaction amongst other humans, right? Like, we're not talking about morality isn't a thing if it's a single person in the entire universe, right? With no other life around them or anything. Right. So from there, what I tend to say, especially more lately, is that if that's what we're taking morality to be, right? When I go look at all the moral systems out there, every single one that I've ever come across uses well-being in its system. Right. And so my argument then is most of these systems are just not adequately applying that rule. If well-being is a part of our principles in terms of how we interact, you got to apply it across the board consistently. And most of these don't do that, in my opinion. Secular humanism, I think, is the one that gets the closest.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that take. We did get a few more super chats that I'm going to read before we take another call. We've got one from Native Atheist for $20. Thank you for your generosity there. Thanks to the hosts and backup crew with a big thumbs up and heart. I can't agree more. When problems happen, the crew springs into action and fixes the problem. So thank you so much to the crew. And Hell's Bells with their standard $6.66 contribution. Thank you so much, Hell's Bells. Sending the love, my friends. Been a minute, but we'll be around more soon. Be kind. Hail Satan.
Hail yourself.
Hail Satan, indeed. That is always something that will... Speaking of a great answer to the question of the week, what sort of prayer would grace would you take? That would probably be a problem.
End with a quick Hail Satan.
For those in the know, you either think it's silly because you don't think there's a Satan, or you actually are interested in the tenets of the Church of Satan, an organization that is created basically to demonstrate that the morals of the Old Testament especially are pretty bad, as we were just talking about. The tenets of the Church of Satan, the organization, not an actual church dedicated to Satan, are actually really moral. They're really good. Be kind to others. Don't own other people's property, stuff like that. So
the Satanic Temple is definitely one of the organizations fighting for, on the front lines, fighting for separation of church and state. So